Hey, Eastern Oregon, it's April the 13th. Hey, and that's our guest, Tim, and we're going to have him come in here.
They thought that you fired me, maybe, probably.
All right, we're going to pull you out, Tim. We'll bring you back in here in a minute. That was funny. Oh man, yeah. It's been a little scattered, I tell you. I think we're both red in the face there.
Yeah, that's fine. He can take my job. I'll take a snooze.
Oh, so hey, welcome you guys. Glad you're here with us today. Let us know you're here. Dr. Tim Gleeson is going to be talking to us here a little later on about COVID and vaccinations and vaccines and baseball. You don't know. We're going to talk about baseball.
We are?
Yeah, but you'll find out why here in a bit.
Oh, so, that just made my morning much more exciting.
Yeah, and so if you have questions that you want to ask of a doc, like what is the boil that you're experiencing on your, yeah, I can see Tim. Yeah, it's like he probably gets that all the time. Hey, I have this thing. Yeah, anyhow. So we'll have an interactive conversation. How are you doing this morning, man?
I'm awesome. Great. Lots of energy. Feel good.
Good. How's the diet going, man?
Diet's going really good. This is day 13.
Wow.
And let's see here. I haven't cheated yet, which I'm proud of myself for that.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah.
Diet this strict. I just kind of figured if I cheated, then I'd keep cheating. I'd keep going back to the well. And I mean, one way to keep it mentally blocked is to not do it at all the first time. So
yeah,
I've been very strict. I struggle a little bit with keeping on time just because there's so much involved. You got to eat so many times during the day. But besides for that, my only other struggle has been drinking enough water. And I have to drink a gallon a day. And I before the diet, I probably drink almost that much or right around there. But since the diet, since I'm not eating, a regular meal, I haven't. I've had a little bit of trouble getting the water down, but I've hit my goal every day.
Excellent.
Killing it. My pants don't fit already. I can't keep my pants on my butt. But besides for that, everything is awesome.
Well, good deal. All righty.
Metrim MD right here in LeGrand.
Yeah.
Dr. Kopp right across the street. They've provided me with this opportunity through an advertising deal, and it's life-changing, and it's a once in a lifetime opportunity for me. I needed the accountability and the structure, and they're providing that, and it's amazing.
Good. And Kyle talks about this more on his morning or his sports show, which is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and it comes at 5:30 or 6. I'm trying to remember.
5:30. Yep.
Yeah, and so he's kind of tracking in detail, and he'll also be interviewing James Kopp there, talking to him about and other people who are having success with this also. So
yeah, there's quite a few people that it's been successful for, anywhere from 5 pounds to 150 pounds.
Yeah, now that's crazy. So,
yeah, and it's safe. They don't use appetite suppressant. I mean, so the doc at the very beginning, he writes you a prescription for an appetite suppressant, and he says use it if you need it, and it's still sitting in my folder. So
good deal.
I'm a hungry dude. I like food.
I know.
Look at this day. Wow.
Look at that. Isn't that pretty?
Yeah, it's still a little cold out there, though.
It is. It's a little chilly. But, I mean, it was chilly enough that I put a coat on this morning. So, but hey.
I talked about it on Friday night, BC. The most beautiful view, one of the most beautiful views in this whole valley is that press box at EOU in the evening.
It is. I was beside you when you were talking about that. Yeah.
It's so beautiful. It's crazy.
It is.
We live in God's country for sure.
Absolutely.
We got some weather. Today it's going to warm up all the way to 55. It looks like it's going to right around 39 right now. It's going to drop down to the 20s tonight, so it's going to freeze.
Yeah, so it's going to get.
We're not going to. I mean, people can't start planting their garden yet.
Yeah, and then tomorrow,
it looks almost identical, but a little bit higher of a low. Yeah,
yeah.
We're going to get up to 53 in the late afternoon, 35 in the morning. little bit of wind. Tomorrow will probably be a nice golf day out at the Peak.
Yeah. And Gabe is doing, I mean, he posts these on social media, like the one for today, he posts right after the show.
Yep.
And he's doing a little audio track with that too. So yeah, and if you've not picked up our stuff, all of our stuff is available on Spotify and podcasts for those longer version things. And so be
Follow
sure
us on Twitter, Instagram at EOAlive TV for updates.
Yep.
And we also have an app coming out. Well, we have an app for the Android version out in the Google Play Store. Just search EOAlive TV, and it's the first thing that pops up.
Yep. So there's
Apple app coming soon.
A ton of stuff coming on, and we'll mention this later in the week too. But this Friday is the Grand Round Hospital Foundation. Their live stream is Friday night at 6:00, and we'll be streaming that on our network.
Pat Flynn and Bob Kavanaugh. Oh, Patrick Flynn. I got to call him by the professional name on the air. I say Flinny.
Yeah.
Flinny's Junior, though. No, I call Junior Flinny.
Right. Yeah.
I call the little one Flinny usually, but I call him Pat. I mean, that's what we always called him, but now it's Patrick. That's weird because usually when you get older, it's the opposite. You know, Timmy becomes Tim. Patrick becomes Pat, but he flipped it. He was Pat back in the days. Now he's Patrick.
Yep. So he's doing that thing, and I'm knee deep in video editing right now. So
and I have big guests on my sports show this week too. I'm gonna have both the offensive and defensive coordinator from EOU football, which they just ended their season. They missed the playoffs by a tiebreaker. And then Blaine Shaw, local LeGrand kid, graduated last year, started all year as a true freshman on this defense. And then also Khaki Moorhead Marina, who's she's the CCC Conference Volleyball Coach of the Year. She's in the national tournament. They play this Saturday at home at 5:00, and she also had an undefeated season. So I'm gonna talk with her this week as well.
All righty. Good. Well, hey, let's bring on our guest for a second time. How are you doing, Tim?
Hey, I'm wonderful. Thanks, Brett.
Well,
Kyle, good to see you.
Glad you're here with us and joining us. And so what you don't know, Kyle, is that Tim played college ball as a catcher.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and chose to go to med school rather than, I mean, he had some teams sniffing around and wanting him to try out. And so, yeah, so you guys, and
catchers are my favorite.
Yeah. And what, Tim, you don't know is that Kyle was a pitcher. I mean, that was his game. So yeah.
I pitched in college. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So you guys,
baseball's my, I got a baseball tattooed right here on my arm.
Yeah. So you guys have, and it was funny, Tim, because Kyle called a college baseball game. It's probably been 6 months ago now.
EOU's first game back.
Yeah. And he called it. It was just really interesting to listen to because he called it from a pitcher's perspective. I mean, he kind of saw the nuances of it's like, well, yeah. So it was just, I had never heard someone call a game from that standpoint, and he kind of knew what the pitcher was thinking and what he's kind of going to want to throw, or, what he intended to throw and what he missed, or it was just an interesting perspective.
The catcher would know that too.
Right. Yep. I found it, Kyle, not in your case, I'm sure, but oftentimes the catcher would have to do the thinking for the pitcher.
Yeah. My catchers did. Yeah. No doubt.
No, we see it, the game, I bet a lot the same. From that perspective, it's really, I find myself looking at the ball games that way.
You can't, I can't not analyze it. It's just in my blood. And one of the things that I really like about the catcher position is you're like the quarterback for one thing. You're the only person on the field that can see the whole field.
Right.
The only person on the field that can see the whole field. And the other thing that I like about catchers is they're tough and gritty. And I mean, my catchers in high school and college. My catcher in high school was on the state championship wrestling team in '96 from LeGrand. Robert Mahon. He was just about as tough as you could get. And it's always nice to have a tough catcher that has your back.
Yeah, you're right. Good call. Yeah, I played a few years back, and at Oregon State, and I like to joke around and say that when I played, that's when Oregon State had a good team.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Oregon State's pretty good.
No, that with people know right away.
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, yeah, you have to be a little gritty. I don't know if I consider myself that way now, but yeah, you kind of have to toughen up a little bit. You're blocking the plate. You're not going to let someone score easily. You're picking up balls that can hit you anywhere, and sometimes not so comfortably.
My catcher in high school got one, and he was in the hospital for 2 days. It skipped off the plate. I threw pretty hard.
Yeah,
and it kind of hit the plate and took a weird hop and hit him right in the cup, and he was urinating blood in the hospital for 2 days.
Well, thank goodness I didn't have to go through that. But yeah, I had hit ears and
fingers, I'm sure, forearm.
Yeah.
Ooh, right here on the wrist. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, anyway. Yeah, but the mask and the protectors help. That's for sure. Yeah.
Back then, you guys probably didn't even wear helmets when you were hitting.
No, we did, but they were minimal. I remember when we first started, the helmet fit inside the cap. You just had a little hard liner that kind of surrounded your baseball cap, and you put that on, and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's awesome. You still got your glove?
Somewhere. Yeah.
I want to see it. I collect gloves. I do. I collect old gloves. I like looking at like different eras of catcher's gloves, especially.
Yeah. I loved it. It's a great game. Not everybody sees it the way you do. Being catcher and a pitcher, you're active all the time on every play. Keeps you interested, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
As opposed to sitting out in right field. Nothing against right fielders, but it can get pretty boring out there after a while. So
I like the one-on-one aspect of being a pitcher. I like to dominate. Like I want to beat somebody.
Yeah, good. I like that. Good attitude for a pitcher. Yeah.
So, Tim, did you ever badmouth batters as they were up and like hassle them and like,
A little. He had to have. A little bit.
Not personally, but in a general context, like this guy can't hit.
Yeah, cool. And that's not personal. You can't hit, but this isn't personal.
But in a way, so you are sort of the cheerleader for the team too, as well as seeing the whole field. You got to kind of keep especially the pitcher. Some of those guys aren't as solid, Kyle, as you are psychologically, but so some of them need a lot of mental.
Yeah, those are the left-handed ones.
Yes, I found that to be true.
It's so true.
Sorry, left-handers out there. Yeah.
My son's a left-handed pitcher. He's a freshman in high school, and he's goofier than two left shoes. They're just goofy. Well, they fold their glove different than us. They're goofy. They know it. It's all right.
Yeah. Life is different for them, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it was good. We had a good team. We took the Northern Conference. Back then, the Pac-8. It was a Pac-8. And then we'd go down south and play USC. USC was a powerhouse back then, and they, half their team signed pro. At some point, and virtually every year, and they just had an ongoing domination.
Who's the most famous player you played against? Do you remember?
Well, oh gosh, the guy Cey.
Ron Cey.
Ron Cey, third base, LA Dodgers,
and the Cubs too.
And the Cubs. Yep. He played at Washington State. The best player I played against was a USC. Can't think of his name right now, but he was the most dominating, awesome hitter you could imagine. Signed pro, and like after a year was killed in a car crash.
Oh,
but
no.
And then there was a catcher from where was he from? Stanford, who played for many years for Philadelphia. I can't remember his name now, but there are a lot of guys who've signed, of course, into pros and have had success. Our main pitcher, a guy named Ken Forsch, he signed pro and played a number of years for, I think it was Houston, and then became their pitching coach for a number of years.
You're thinking of Bob Boone.
Bob Boone, exactly.
Yeah. He's got two sons that played in the Major League Baseball too, Aaron Boone and Brett Boone. Brett Boone was a Mariner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he?
His dad, Bob Boone's dad, was in big leagues too.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. He was a good guy too. He was
I used to have this game, and there were these little discs, and you put them in and you spin the little thing. Each disc had like home run, out, double play, whatever. And Bob Boone was my catcher in that game when I played against my dad.
Yeah, well, he had a real successful year. Say had a real successful year.
Ron Say was a stud.
Yeah, he walked funny.
Did
called
he?
him the Penguin. Yeah, he had this. I mean, he wasn't slow, but he was a heck of a third baseman. But and he could hit the ball really well. But he walked funny like a penguin.
That's funny.
I knew you guys would take off on baseball. Yeah, so
I love baseball.
I know. So
My
Tim,
uncle. Go ahead.
No,
I was going to say I really got interested in. I've always been a Boston fan. Okay, and reason was one of my dad's brothers, Uncle Art, used to broadcast with Kurt Gowdy. They were broadcast. You know that name.
Oh yeah.
And they broadcast for the Boston Red Sox. He was and he would always bring me leftover bats, hats, Carl Yastrzemski's bat.
Oh.
I mean, I just was in the family,
Jim Rice.
Yes. And yeah.
Fred Lynn.
Yes.
When he became a Padre, I was so happy because I'm a Padres fan. So
yeah. And so that was kind of, a real connection for me at an early age, because he broadcast in the 50s, mostly in early 60s. Yeah.
Nice. At least you have a reason to like the Red Sox, unlike some of these yahoos who just like them because they're popular and they've been winning.
Yeah. Well, I always had a partial allegiance to the Red Sox.
That's an awesome story.
Yeah.
So Tim, tell us a little bit about how you got to LeGrand. Give us your life story in a thumbnail nutshell. Yeah.
Okay. Born and raised in Portland. My dad and mom were born in Portland. They actually, his folks at one time lived in Baker. Actually, he was born in Baker, but his dad was a mining engineer, and then they moved to Portland. Had a brother who was a pitcher, left-hander. So I grew up with him. He was older, and he would say, "Tim, come on, I got to go practice. Come catch me." And he was the wildest pitcher you could imagine.
Lefty.
A lefty. But he became good. But I got used to picking up all kinds of crazy wild pitches, just with his practice. So I grew up in Beaverton area, went to Sunset High, went to Oregon State, went into medicine, went to Oregon Health Science University. Back then it was University of Oregon Medical School. Spent several years in the military as a family practitioner, and then went into anesthesia residency in Utah. And I married Linda during that process in medical school, my wife, who was a pharmacist, and we're both retired. I went into anesthesia. She went into pharmacy, and besides raising kids and family, she works a good bit of the time, not full time, too much at the time. But so we've had an opportunity to travel quite a bit. We've in the military and the Air Force had a station in Greece. That was at the time I signed up, they were still drafting for Vietnam, but that ended just as I became an active duty. So we got shipped to Greece. That was great. Had 3 daughters over the years, quite separated in age, have 8 grandkids. I've retired now from anesthesia, spent 25 years here in LeGrand doing anesthesia, about 10 or 12 years in Walla Walla. And then last few years, just very off and on part-time in mostly the Seattle area.
All right. And you and I talked, has it been a year ago now? And you and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you were patient zero in the COVID world, patient one. I don't know, what do
Right.
you call it, in Union County? Yeah.
Yeah, I forget the name too, but yeah, I was the first case in Union County of
Right.
actual diagnosed
Yeah,
COVID.
and you had gotten it when you were in Spain, or I'm trying to remember where you guys were. It's some international place.
Right. We're in Spain, and our kids said, "Oh, our mom and dad are sure you want to go?" And I said, "Yeah, no problem. We're fine." About a week into the trip, they called and said, "You better get your, you know what, back here in a hurry because the government's going to close everything, and you won't be able to get back." So we got back early, and in that process, we were kind of like herd of cows. And I know I got it during that process of coming back. Uh, got back to LeGrand, became symptomatic, and they said they advised us, don't, quarantine yourself anyway, even if you're not symptomatic, which we did. Got sick a day after I got back with typical COVID symptoms, and so it was March 15th or 16th, and went through it fortunately without too much any difficulty. Cough, uh, myalgia, muscle aches, fever, lost my sense of taste and smell, but it only lasted about a week. And then I felt fine. So I was fortunate. But we quarantined
Yeah, very
ourselves.
fortunate.
When I talked to you the first time, Brent, it was about 4 or 5 weeks, or maybe 4 weeks into it, and we had quarantined ourselves for like 6 weeks. And my
Yeah,
wife, yeah, she became presumed positive. They didn't test her, but they said she's positive by default, they said. And so we quarantined. Yeah. That's when we
yeah,
first talked.
yep. And we talked. I mean, that was early on. There was a lot that we didn't know, and I know that you have. I mean, I know you personally were great friends, and I know that you are still a student of everything, and so you've been following the vaccines, you've been following the COVID stuff, and so I guess I'm kind of interested in knowing, what you think of where we are. I mean, now that we're a year down the road, and you know, seems like it seems like like Linda had some kind of a procedure where she had to be tested, and she also, I mean, not only was she presumed positive, but she did have COVID during that time or sometime in there when you had it, but
Right.
she didn't really have any symptoms at all. I mean, so you guys have both experienced this. You've been very fortunate, but at the same time, I'm sure you know people that have, died because of it or had, some very severe symptoms. So
Right.
I don't know. I guess let's start general. What do you
Well,
think of this crazy place where we are right now?
it's a difficult topic to navigate through because of uh, un where because the science is new, because the science isn't complete. It's hard to navigate through because of the political ramifications that have come about. It's so multifaceted now. It's hard to know where to start, or even where to finish, because we're not finished. But I would say to start, and this is okay. Let me just say first, I'm not an expert. Okay, but I do know studies when I read them. I do know reliable sources, not 100%, but I can tell when something's BS and when it's not. And um, I think right now I would say we're in the endemic phase. I think we're no longer in a pandemic, and could be wrong. Maybe there'll be another upsurge and it'll reach pandemic levels, but I don't think so. I think with the population immunity, i.e., herd immunity, and vast numbers of vaccination, vast number of people who've had coronavirus, either symptomatic or asymptomatic, I think we're going to see less and less of it. The latest number I saw was 350 deaths maybe a day or two ago, far down, number of active infectious. And it's a funny number. People who number, and I won't go through the numbers because they mean different things. But I would say the actual number of infected cases is going down. The number of disease, you can be infected and not have a disease. The number of diseases is going down. All the signs are that it's more of an endemic phase. It's just there, but it's not as, it's not as.
Are you talking about just in the U.S.?
Talking in the U.S.
Yeah, because worldwide COVID cases are going up.
That's right, and you need to look at those numbers if you travel. That's a good point. Yeah, I'm talking just U.S.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
So talk to us about the vaccine, because that is the big, that's the big thing. There's lots of pressure, peer pressure, societal pressure to be vaccinated. People land on huge different sides of that. I know you, in spite of having COVID, you recently decided to have the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Talk about why did you decide to do that? What was your decision process for that, Tim?
Okay. I'll make a few general comments about vaccines, and I'll relate our personal choice.
Okay.
Most of the time you don't have a personal choice. CDC recommend or says that they're all safe, that they're all effective. Pretty much in efficacy, how effective they are there are different ways of looking at that, but let's just say they're all have equal effectiveness as far as preventing the disease of COVID and serious COVID illness and deaths, which are the most important. If you get COVID and it's not much, great. It's just like getting a cold, but it's the severe and the illness and the deaths that are most important. And that's all the three that we're familiar with, the Pfizer, the Moderna, and the Johnson & Johnson's are relatively the same in that area. So there are different ways of formulating vaccines. There's the early on, and I would say vaccines are one of the greatest achievements in medicine, in modern medicine, as far as life-saving and illness prevention. I'm a pro-vaccine person. I understand why people are hesitant about vaccination. I know the reasons they think they might have good reason not to get a vaccine, but at the end of the day, I'm pro-vaccine. Now, there are ways to formulate various vaccines. Early on with like the smallpox, they would scratch your skin and actually inject a bit of a live virus. It wasn't the normal way the virus gets into your system through the airway. So it wasn't the response was milder. Some people really got sick when they did the scratch, but generally it was a mild case. They developed normal immunity and then were lifelong immunity to it. And then there are other types of vaccines where they take the live virus, they kill it, they inject it back in your system with other things. The virus is unable to replicate, but the body recognizes it as a foreign thing. It creates the immune response, and then you get your immunity. They inject parts of viruses or bacteria as another way of doing a vaccination. And the body recognizes this. Certain cells of the body take these particles in, they reproduce them, they send them out, and other cells in your body, the T cells, the B cells of your immune system react and produce the immunity. Another form is where they they take another type of virus, let's say another type of cold virus, and modify it, inject that into your body. It produces the parts of the RNA gene that is, say in the coronavirus, is the gene that creates the spike. Your body recognizes that as foreign, creates the immune response. Another one is the mRNA, which is a new way of producing vaccines. And for the Pfizer and the Moderna are have been manufactured, formulated with this technology. And really, this is the whole nother new strategy for vaccine formulation. And it really isn't a vaccine. I think you have to stretch the vaccine definition away a bit to call this a vaccine. It's more like injecting a microchip into your, I shouldn't use that example.
Don't say that. Nobody's gonna get it.
And scratch that. It's injecting a man-made kind of a device into your body, and that gets incorporated into these certain cells, and I can't think of the name of the cells, but they line your airway, they line your your blood vessels, and these particular type of cells take this manufactured mRNA inside. They make the RNA. The causes this messenger RNA makes your own cell create the gene or the protein that creates the spike in the coronavirus. So these cells then express this protein into your body. And the B lymphocytes, the T lymphocytes recognize this as foreign and then manufacture the immunity to the coronavirus based on your body making its own protein that's typical of the coronavirus. So that's a different thing. And so the two of the three that are available here in the US are the Moderna, Pfizer, and now the Johnson & Johnson. So Johnson & Johnson's one shot. It's more the traditional way of producing a virus. My wife and I thought it was effective. For us, we felt it was like getting a booster shot because we had COVID. We believe that the long-term effects of the mRNA is not known. So when the CDC says they're all safe, I say okay, but they can't say that for the long term. No one can tell you the long-term safety of the mRNA type virus.
Because nobody's had it long term.
Exactly. And there's always risk benefit to any of the vaccines you take, to some extent, but we believe that Johnson & Johnson was safer. So in our personal choice, and we did have a choice because both were offered, most of the time people don't have a choice. And so the best advice is to get what's available. I think I would agree with that advice, especially if you're in a vulnerable category, age or comorbidity. So I believe that, and I'm not, if you've had the Moderna or the Pfizer, I'm not saying, whoa, you stupid you don't know what you're going to. No, I'm just saying from the knowledge we have, I thought it was the best decision for us. So, yeah.
So, did you have any side effects?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. There are side effects, and you read about them, and maybe you've had some if you've had the shot from all of them. Yeah. But from the Johnson & Johnson, my wife didn't notice anything, maybe a little fatigue. I having some issues with heart rhythms right now. I do have rhythm, and but it's not always the right rhythm. So I noticed a real bad night with my heart. Anyway, that night, and it was disturbing, but it went away. So that was me. And I assume it was the reaction to the virus, the stress on my body, which created the me to go into this rhythm that I don't like to go into. But the more common side effects for all the viruses, particularly the Pfizer, Moderna group, are that you've read about, are fever, chills, the usual flu-like symptoms of the disease itself, because you're getting a mild form of the disease in a way. And even people have had some, and I take that back. Yeah, mostly fever, chills, aches, cough, some persisted for several days, I guess.
Do you think the people that say that it was painful for a couple of days, are they the people that are wimps?
No.
Because I can get a cortisone shot in my ankle, right in the joint, and it doesn't hurt that bad. Realistically, to me.
No, I think, and that's another side effect. I think there's, pain, swelling, redness, injection site. Yeah, I think no, that's I think, and I'll tell you that one of the things that a lot of these vaccines have a lot of other additives to it for various reasons, but in the case of the Pfizer and Moderna, part of it is to because of the extreme temperature you need to store the virus in, extremely low, and so they one of the additives is antifreeze. So they're injecting
Great.
so
Just what I always wanted.
yeah, so you get probably, if I injected just antifreeze into my muscle, and I'd probably get a pretty good reaction to that. So I think,
and so the point of that is that that's going to cause some discomfort or some reaction.
Right. It's not, but that goes away. Normal stuff, Tylenol, your ibuprofen, maybe if you can't take those, a cold pack.
Yeah.
Did yours hurt when you got your shot? Was it painful?
Only when I pushed. So
Okay.
and that lasted for about a week. But it is a muscular injection. It's deeper, and those tend to be more discomfort.
So when you said somebody had told me that they are not introducing the virus in the vaccine, and you just said they're sort of. Expound on that a little bit, and if that's too complicated of a scientific explanation.
Well, they're
you said in a way they're introducing a part of the
and like I said, one of the formulations for a vaccine is they take a part of the virus, or it could be a bacteria. Usually it's part of the cell wall, a protein from the cell wall. And in the case of the coronavirus, it's typically this spike. You've seen the picture of the coronavirus as all these Sputnik-looking spikes. That's why they call it corona, because it looks like a crown with the spikes. And so they either take that protein and inject it, in this case, in another virus, attenuated virus, and they make that virus, it doesn't replicate, but that vector virus, so to speak, and say a cold virus that has this particle in it, goes into these cells in your body. Your cells express the coronavirus protein, and your body recognizes that and creates the immune response. Yes, they inject. That's not the coronavirus, and no one's injecting the coronavirus or a form of it, the entire virus, into your body for this. No, there's no. They may have tried that. I bet they did early on before the various phases of trial. The scientific phase, they are trying different things.
Right.
All of these methodologies to create a virus or some of them or all of them. And I imagine they did try in some animal trials a form of the coronavirus itself, but those didn't seem to work. So is my guess.
So what, but I mean, let's going back to those people that are like, they've got their heels set is like, no, I'm not going to do this virus. It's been rushed or I'm not going to do this vaccine. It's been rushed. I haven't got corona, virus. I mean, your recommendation is to do something, to not go without.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to go back to that a little bit. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, because
go ahead.
No, go ahead and kind of launch from there if you would.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting launching point, and I'll tell you why. I think there's good reasons to question vaccinations that are produced, fast. I think most of the scientific protocols required for normal drug and vaccine acceptance and approval by the FDA have been gone through. They haven't been as complete as peer reviewed and multiple studies going on in different places as much as one would like. And that's why it takes a number of years. They've, in the third phase, and I won't get into the phases, they have cut the third phase short, typically with all the formulations of a corona vaccine. And there are probably 10 or 12 at least going on right now, besides the 3 that are here in the United States. There are a number of other vaccines being studied and are in this oftentimes third phase. Anyway, they've kind of cut that short. They look at, well, instead of we're satisfied that this third phase is showing us that it's okay, and they test it in old people, young people, people with different compromised or comorbidities and so forth. They do all that, but they don't do the complete cycle. It's sort of mid-cycle, and then the CDC or the FDA wants to see a continuation of the phase 3. So there's some concern that, yeah, maybe it's not as thorough, but then you have to weigh that against, the need to get the population immunity. So at the end game, the end result for me is that I think it's reasonable for the FDA, and they did, to approve it on an emergency basis. And that's been done. On the other hand, I don't believe everything the CDC, the FDA, or the NIH tells me. I think we've seen enough evidence over for a long time that, like any other expert, and I'm just speaking from me now, you got to be a little skeptical here and there. And for example, I think they've shortchanged the therapies for COVID. I think they've done an inadequate job of giving us the best shot at treating it. And by poo-pooing foreign studies, by not launching huge immediate studies for therapies as they have for the vaccination process. And I believe that there are therapies out there that are really effective.
When you say therapy, you're talking about post-infection,
no,
after you've actually gotten it?
I'm talking about, yes, post exposure. Let's say I come in as right away with COVID symptoms. I'm talking about at that point you intervene, and most of the things that they're using, like the remdesivir virus antiviral, drug, the plasma, the other things, those are effective early on, but they have been just given later in the course of the disease, and they're not effective later. And hydroxychloroquine, I think, should have been trialed much more in depth. And I'm not going to go into hydroxychloroquine because that's probably the most politically loaded thing you can say about hydroxychloroquine for whatever reasons, but so these things like the antivirals, the plasma, the monoclonal antibodies, the steroids that are used except for the steroids, those need to be done really early. And there's the best drug, I think, that has been studied for it is ivermectin, which is, as you know, an anti-parasite drug, but ivermectin doesn't read the literature, and it's just a molecule, and it happens to kill viruses also. So it's a great cheap drug, maybe instead of $1,000, $3,000 a pop for remdesivir, it costs as low as 5 cents, or a course of therapy, $20 in the US, $30. But and that has been studied other places, not in US, and it seems double-blinded, huge numbers, and it works. Reducing the severity of illness and deaths and all that stuff. So hopefully that even now that we got the vaccines, that the US will launch more into the therapeutic, yay or nay, for treatment. Anyway.
I'm just talking on the basis of like self-preservation, human preservation. Our like us as humans, we wouldn't survive if we weren't skeptical. We have to be somewhat skeptical, right? And so like what do you think, Tim? What do you think about like the military for say? Like I read a thing where it's saying like 40% of military people are declining the vaccination.
Well, I'd like to know their reasons. Okay. As a young, healthy person, if you get COVID, you're going to survive.
I'm pretty sure I had it.
Yeah. And the young people, that's not dies. Funny thing, the people who die are people who die at that age anyway. I mean, the death due to COVID follow the normal age groupings of death. Okay, so that's why 65 and older is a higher rate of death. Young people like 40-year-old military guys, pretty low, if hardly on the chart. And although you hear about them, and those are scary, and they do happen. So I'm not going to deny the danger of this virus, but I can understand a healthy person saying, "Look, I just soon get it the natural way and go through the immune process." I mean,
are you a believer that once you have it, that you've already developed some immunity to it? Is that scientific, or is that?
Well, this is the okay. I don't think we know how long the immunity lasts. Yes, the answer is yes. We have immunity after you get it, and yes, you have immunity after you get a vaccine, and the reasons are the same, because even though you get your B cells, T cells, part of your the white blood cells in the bloodstream. You have your red cells, your white cells. Okay, B and T lymphocytes are part of the white cell family. They produce the antibodies. The B cells produce the antibodies. The T cells do other things in your immune, but they both remember the immunity. Your antibodies are produced by the B cells. They go away on time, but it's kind of like this. My wife has a great recipe for tartar sauce. We had fried razor clams last night for dinner. Oh my gosh.
You can't talk about food on here. I'm a diet.
No, this is okay. So she pulls out this tartar sauce. It's not turning green yet, but she said, I better not use this. This is from it didn't smell bad at all. It probably was fine, but I better make some new stuff. Okay. Well, she went to the recipe book to make some new tartar sauce. Your immune system's like that. The antibodies are the tartar sauce that's in their fridge. It's used for right away. But your T cells and B cells are like the recipe book. Okay, so when you get re-exposed to the virus 6 months, again, or a year, and your body goes to the recipe book, which is the library for that is in the T cells and the B cells. They have memory, and they produce new antibodies right away. And so that, and some, measles, it's a lifetime of immunity, so, and some aren't. Flu virus, of course it changes the strains, but so no one knows, but I'm confident that my T cells and B cells are working fine, and I had immunity naturally. That's why I look at the Johnson & Johnson as a booster.
So we won't know. We won't know until somebody's had it for long enough, like all the way through their whole life to know if having it makes you immune for life, like measles, or if.
Exactly. The duration of immunity is not known either for the vaccine or the natural form. So that is a $64 question.
But you guys personally decided to go ahead and get a booster, even though you both knew that you had COVID previously. So,
right.
Yeah. So, so you have enough confidence. So there was enough question, even though you both had COVID, there was enough question of like us having COVID, does that create enough immunity for us to not get it again? And there was enough of that was unknown that you decided we're going to get the Johnson & Johnson as a booster on top of us having it.
I think that's a good summary. I tend to think of the coronavirus as more like the cold virus on steroids. I mean, it can kill you. Whereas your colds, they can kill you too. Cold viruses have killed some of the patients or friends I've known who has serious underlying disease, and they get a little cold, and all of a sudden they're dead from that. So,
Right.
so in that sense, but I think the coronavirus appears to be more like the cold virus in the sense of variation and and the immunity not being forever.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I want you to kind of finish your thought, because I had asked you, essentially, so should people get vaccinated or not? And you kind of led us through, well, they should be skeptical, and this is why, and so on and so forth. But finish the rest of that. So given all of that stuff, how there are times that the CDC has not been trustworthy, they haven't done due diligence in some of the therapy areas that you're talking about. And given all of that, though, do you think that those people that, again, have their heels dug in, I'm absolutely not going to do this, I mean, how would you help help them delineate if they're younger, if you're younger and your risk of dying from the disease is low, maybe not. But if you're older, then I don't know, kind of conclude the rest of that for us.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure I have
if you can. Yeah.
Just a singular conclusion. I would say I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I think if anti-vaxxers, for whatever reason, believe in that, and there are reasons, I don't think they're adequate reasons. I would say, well, go get it naturally. Here, you can come into this room. We've just filled it with coronavirus. You walk through there, get your COVID-19 over with, get your natural immunity. Don't rely on me to get the vaccine, and so you can get the benefit of my herd immunity. There's part of me that thinks that way. Okay, in other words, they're relying on all of the rest of us to protect them, and that's a noble, probably a Christian ideal, but it in a way it's sort of like wimping out. On the other hand, if they say, good, I'll do that, I'll go get COVID and I'm going to get my immunity naturally, I can appreciate that. Okay, especially if you're in the safe age group and medical wellness profile, probably won't be much of a deal. And it could smack you though, because it's a nasty virus in some people. But my thinking overall, in spite of my skepticism, is get the vaccination. Even if you're young, they haven't tested it enough in, let's see, Moderna is 18 and older, Pfizer 16 and older, Johnson Johnson's 18 and older. So they're not recommending it at all for kids. So they're still, possible infectious.
So basically what you're saying is, if Kyle, hypothetically speaking, 41 years old, I have a couple comorbidities. I'm overweight. I have high blood pressure. Yeah. I've had coronavirus, not confirmed by a doctor, but I'm pretty dang sure I had it. I mean, it was very, if I came to you and said, hey, Tim, should I get the vaccination? I haven't had it yet, because I'm in the boat where I feel like I want, I don't want to rush to get it, because I want to make sure the people that are older than me get it first.
Yeah.
If I came to you and said, should I get it when it's available? What are you going to tell me?
Yes. Get it.
Okay.
Yeah. That would be my I still come down on the side. I think the U.S. has done a marvelous job of getting these vaccines out. I'm a believer in the fact that even though it's been a collaboration of folks with big money from the government and from the big pharma, I still believe that the system, it was basically integritous in formulating these and testing these, and that I would recommend a vaccine when it's available. I gave you my reasons for Johnson & Johnson. Yeah. If you have a choice, I would recommend Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah. Good. So, and before we quit, talk for a minute about the variants of the virus and kind of what you know, and I don't know, talk about that for a minute, if you would.
Yeah.
I mean, because it seems personally, it seems overwhelming. It's like, holy smokes, I'm just getting my head around. Yeah. And there are variants out there. Is that something to be afraid of? I don't know. So talk about that.
I think, I think it's, I'm okay. Here's what I think is a rational response to that threat. Don't panic. All right. Don't go down to lockup. Don't put an extra mask on. All right. I think being vaccinated, you now have reasonable freedoms to do things you weren't allowed to do. Let's put it that way. I think you can associate more. I think, you can be around people without masks if they are not a susceptible group. I think you're safe to associate. Okay, now the variants come in. Okay, viruses mutate. This is acting like a normal virus. Okay, and like a normal coronavirus, and they all do this to some extent. It's just the way viruses work. And so you get these special ones, UK, South Africa. Yes, well, they don't know for sure. It appears as though the Pfizer and the Moderna are effective to some degree in immunity. Pfizer better than Moderna. Johnson & Johnson is the best. It's almost seems to be equally or close to efficacy with these variants. What the variants mean are kind of like the flu. You have a revaccination, a booster shot. They may reformulate. Maybe some of these newer vaccines that they're producing will be more adept at immunizing us against the various variants that are coming out. So don't panic. That might be. Let's not hunker down in a fear mongering, fetal position for the rest of our lives. That's my take.
Good. So variants or not, your recommendation still is this: if you're in a risk factor, then you should find your way to some kind of a vaccine. If Johnson & Johnson is available, that's what you would recommend. But any vaccine, if you're a high risk thing, is better than nothing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I get it if it's available. And that's my recommendation. You bet.
Excellent. Well, Tim, thank you for letting me kind of corner you on this. I know, you and I know each other personally, and we've talked business, theology. I mean, I love your mind. I love talking to you and engaging conversations, and I appreciate you. You and I did not have much time to prep you for this. I called you last night and said, hey, and we spend a lot of time with talking with CHD. They're one of our big sponsors, and we're helping them get the word out and stuff. And of course, their perspective is, they're just doing their job. Their job is to promote vaccinations and give vaccinations. And we just needed another voice that was a little bit more objective. And I just really appreciate that. Yeah.
The mayor wants to know, how's your golf game?
Do you know Caleb Sampson?
Oh yeah, he does.
Yeah. Sure. Yes. Yeah. Oh, terrible.
I haven't swung a club in 4 months.
It's my COVID long haul. Just, I blame it on COVID. Hey, I appreciate you guys. Brianna, of course, I love you and your family and your friendship. And Kyle, such a great get you knowing better and how much I respect you and your family. It's wonderful to see you and meet you more.
Yeah. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Tim, and appreciate it. And we're going to find a way to have more conversations like this. So
Okay.
appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for your
My
time today.
pleasure.
Yeah. All righty,
All right.
man.
Let me get through my list, and then
Yeah.
let's get these people out of here. On this day, which would be April 13th, 2021, in 1796, the first elephant was brought to the United States from India. In 1860, the very first Pony Express reached Sacramento, California. In 1911, the Polo Grounds burnt down on this day. The left field bleachers and the grandstand burnt down at the Polo Grounds. In 1912, the Royal Flying Corps was formed, which later became the Air Force. In 1943, FDR dedicated the Jefferson Memorial on this day. 1949, Philip S. Hench announced the discovery of cortisone, which was huge in rheumatoid arthritis, injuries. 1963, Charlie Hustle had his first major league hit. He's the all-time leader in hits in Major League Baseball, Pete Rose. 1970, Apollo 13 announced, "Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here," as Beach-built oxygen tank explodes en route to the moon. And then the number one song in America 30 years ago today was "I've Been Thinking About You" by London Beat. It's that song, "I've Been Thinking About You." You know that, yeah. BC, you've danced in the shower to that, I guarantee it. And then my positive quote of the day: to uncover your true potential, you must find your own limits, and then you have to have the courage to blow past them. And that is Peekaboo Street, Olympian.
Good.
And that's all I got on a Tuesday.
All righty. Well, Thursday we have Mike Reserve, who he is the new owner. He and his wife are the new owner of Hot Lakes, and they've been doing a ton of stuff out there. And he's going to be talking to us on Thursday morning about that. And so be sure and tune in for that. Yeah. Thanks you all for joining us.
Thank you everybody for watching. We appreciate you, Eastern Oregon.
Yep. Talk to you soon.